Hello and good evening, everybody. Uh, my name is Mike Parsons. I'm currently just moving out of my 7-year Innovator in Residence post at Lancaster University Management School, where I've been teaching undergraduates and postgraduates on the subject of innovation. And I'm moving now into a business mentor and innovation coach role. I've also been the co-author with Mary B. Rose, my colleague at the university, of a book called Invisible on Everest, the only book on the history of innovation in the outdoor industry. I was the founder several years ago of the OMM, Original Mountain Marathon company, which runs both the 2-day event and creates lightweight packs and clothing. And I was formerly the CEO and Chief Innovator at Carrymore with 2 factories and 320 employees. I'm an outdoors man and I participate in most outdoor activities, from skiing to climbing to mountaineering to kayaking and so on. So, I'm here today at the invitation of Alec from Tracky to talk about reshoring. That means bringing production back to the Western world. And we're here in Glasgow Lighthouse Design Centre. And so there seems to be a very nice feeling about bringing things back, a welcome home message if you like, but it's rather tougher than that. There's a lot of issues and it's a complex issue. It's happening to an even greater extent, surprisingly, in the USA, even though the cost difference between USA wages and China wages is even greater than the difference between the UK and China. In China, the US dollar costs per hour are now running somewhere between $3 and $6, and in the USA it's somewhere between $18 and $24 per hour, and the UK is obviously less than that. In the USA, there is even an organisation entitled the Reshoring Initiative to help and support manufacturers and brands and so on who do wish to bring their operations and manufacturing back home. It has been estimated by one of the top consultancy companies that there could well be somewhere between 2 and 3 million jobs produced in the next 5 to 10 years by these reshoring initiatives. So it's something very, very serious to talk about. So I don't think reshoring is a mere option. I think it's pretty well essential. And my evidence and opinion is based on a recent trip to China. Although I've been sourcing in China since the early 80s, I had a visit in April 2013 of this year to a South China company making Gore-Tex and other types of clothing for the outdoor industry. And throughout China there is not only a severe labour shortage, but inflation is raging at about 20% per annum. So at 20% per annum, it's not going to be very long before prices become quite difficult, and we as consumers will no longer be able to have the advantage of such low-cost products. Let me explain why this is happening in a very brief way. When I made my first visit to China, there was no infrastructure there. There was no internal transport. Even standing on a bridge of one of their major rivers, the Yangtze, there were no boats on the river, and there were no quays alongside the river. There was no movement of goods between regions. So therefore, the Chinese government, in looking to industrialise China, set up all the factories around the periphery, along the sea coast, therefore. And so that the goods can be transported much more easily, but therefore the labour had to be very much migrant from the inland and farming areas. Let's have a look at the demographics. So far, so good. The China one person, one child per policy, the one child per family policy has been in place for many, many years now. And there's a difference in attitude in the families now. And come to think of it, Mary Rose and I have been actually educating some of those children as one-child families. And it's a new emerging middle class, and they are in fact becoming now quite, you might call them good consumers, and they are consuming a proportion of their own output, which is what the World Trade Organization and the rest of the world wanted them to do. So that's also causing an additional labour shortage. So let's compare that with what's happening in the Western world. Well, London's streets are no longer paved with gold. What do I mean by that? Many graduates over the 10 years up to 2007 considered that the thing they wanted to do was either to work for the banks or the consulting company, the large London type companies that offered very high starting rates and so on. But now things have changed a lot for reasons which I hardly need to explain. There's a whole new set of attitudes, which means that people have to be more open-minded as to what they do, what they want to do and so on. There are also job shortages, and we have noticed, Mary and I, in teaching young graduates and undergraduates, that the attitudes of the 80s and 90s, that factories were terrible places to be avoided, has largely gone. There is a change, so there's no longer a fear of actually having something to do with the factory. Let's have a look at the additional rationale for reshoring, the reasons, the benefits. That's very important, not just that your supplies are going to dry up. Well, some companies who have already gone down this road are already reporting less leakage. In other words, their ideas don't leak out so fast and are not copied so quickly by other companies in the China area. There are shorter lead times, so therefore you can get you can make your incoming supplies correspond more easily to the demands. Less capital is tied up, which is critically important in these days of shortage of available bank funding. You're closer to your own production, and it's quite possibly going to mean that you can do things more quickly. You have to come to grips with the processes, but your innovation can be faster. So, with all those advantages, what are the hurdles to this reshoring? Well, of course, the costs are going to be higher. There's a big shortage of machine operation skills, and of course factory management skills. I heard it once said several times in the 1990s that the skills of factory managers were shutting down factories, not developing them. Well, how do we overcome those hurdles? Well, one thing you do is ask your China suppliers to set up in Europe, because after all you would want to continue your operations in China because you may want to supply, hopefully, the China market if you developed it there. The main growth underlying the outdoor industry is in fact not in the Western world, certainly not in Europe. But the main growth is in Asian markets, so it makes sense that you keep those operations there. However, changing your business model, which may or may not include selling directly, either in your own stores or online and so on, would be a huge advantage in making that shift. Innovation. Use the emerging technologies to a greater extent than you're doing now in China. Lean manufacturing and pull systems are will be critically important. Let me let me just have a show of hands here. Would you raise a hand, please, if you've ever been into a store, you've money in your pocket, you know you want to spend, you've seen something attractive in the window, but you come out of the store not having spent money because they didn't have your size or colour or exact specification that you wanted. Yeah, well, that looks about 95%. I once did this experience, well, quite a few times with students, and in one case we had every student put up their hand that had that experience except one student. And he was from Mongolia, and I said, how come you were happy? He said, oh, okay, I didn't bother about sizes and fit, he said. And I looked down to see that his shoes were 3 sizes too big, and his cuffs, his fleece cuffs were turned up by 3 inches. So we enjoyed that one. But I think I've made my point. Lean manufacturing and pull systems and being closer to market with your thing can do enormous advantages competitively. The outdoor industry is wide open right now to this sort of approach completely. Well, examples of overcoming hurdles. Well, Apple has invited Foxconn, its Taiwanese China supplier, to actually help it set up in the USA. So they're not trying to do it themselves, yeah. So still you can work in partnership. Change your business model, internet and online sales and so on. Use emerging technologies. There's an awful lot of new technologies emerging, one of them being 3D printing and so on. Have a look at that. It's very, very interesting. The next and final point is about margins. And now, for those of you who know about selling to buyers or product managers and so on, you will probably have noticed that the god for product managers, in other words, the control mechanism which their boss has them motivated by, is the intake margin. It's the supposed margin that they might get if they sell at full price. However, with a push service, a good proportion of those products, of that merchandise, are not sold at that full price. So the outcome margin is more important, and so on. And if you're using a faster response service on a pull system being supplied domestically, you'll find that you can give the customer a higher outcome margin than he can get from products serviced from long distance places on a push system. So, make no mistake, the reshoring journey is a long one, but every journey begins with a single step, so my advice is to start now. Thank you very much.